3, 2, 1. Fragments of Silicon, where the games come one after another.
Right, so welcome to another installment of Fragments of Silicon, the Wednesday edition. Uh, yeah,
The primary show.
Alpha episode. It has many names, but this is the one that we do all the segments for.
Mm-hmm.
Is the important part. I'm your host Adam, and joining me as always is the regular crew. Galix,
Hello.
Ogre,
Evening.
Twilight,
Yo.
and Petty Fan.
I still exist among the living.
That's good. There's a story behind that. So, Petty Fan, you're going first this week.
So yesterday we finally got the dumpster that we ordered a while ago because we have a bunch of like trash and junk that we need to get out. So my sister and I have spent the past 2 days getting that all bagged up and put in the dumpster. So I hurt because, funny thing, lifting heavy things actually causes pain if you're not used to doing it.
It's certainly one of my least favorite chores.
Yeah. So that's been a thing that's happening. You know, it's kind of funny because originally the dumpster company delivered a small dumpster, and my sister and I were taking one look at that and it's like, that's not right. Pull out the measuring tape and yeah, we ordered the 20-yard dumpster and they only sent us a 10. So we had to call.
They're
and get
measured in yards?
cubic yards.
Ah.
So called the dumpster company, got that sorted, and then started throwing stuff out. So yeah, I haven't been able to do much in the way of gaming this past week because we've been getting stuff ready for that. So I guess next victim.
Twilight.
Well, a few days ago, my old headset gave out on me. So Sunday I had to use the webcam mic for the show then. Well, today I finally got a new headset, which is probably why I sound a little different to the others. Otherwise, it's just being cold, surviving this holiday season sale at work, and playing games, and that's about it.
Okay. Galix.
I had a bit of a headache today, which is not a whole ton of fun, and work continues to be doing renovations, so that's kind of a pain. But on the more gaming-related stuff, I am at one of the last zones in Mario Odyssey. I made it to the moon, so yay! Just in time for like Pokemon to come out in 2 days. But of course, there's a ton of post game in Mario Odyssey 2, so we'll see how that goes. And I haven't started playing the game for review this weekend yet because I was having some trouble getting the codes to work, but I got it to work, so I will start with that soon. That's all I got.
Duly noted. Ogre, you're up.
It's been a relatively quiet week. Recordings are going along fine. No real trouble this time around. Let's see. Nothing real personal. Just setting up dates for next week for Thanksgiving and whatnot. Probably go to my sister's for that.
Right.
Should be fun. She's not too far off, so. Let's see. Gaming wise, I picked up because they do these specials every once in a while from was it My Nintendo?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, My Nintendo. They did a couple Sonic Just For You things, so I picked up Sonic the Hedgehog 3D and Sonic Generations for the 3DS. Picked up Deadpool just today because that's being delisted, and they got it for pretty cheap.
I've seen
So
it.
I figured might as well get that. Finally completed, got the gold ending in it, Dragon Quest VIII. I know it's been a while, but other games distract you after you're kind of done with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to get that done and over with for Friday when Pokemon comes out, so I don't really get quote-unquote distracted with that. But
One day I'll finish Pokemon Moon. One day.
I'm hoping Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon are a lot better, because Sun and Moon were just kind of eh.
Like,
From what I've been hearing, they're the same most of the way through, but then the last bit changes significantly.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping for.
I haven't finished Sun or Moon yet either because I got into my usual stall right before the Elite Four.
So, other than that, there's not really a whole lot going on here.
Yeah, I can relate. Now, let's see. Thanksgiving plans have been solidified. Buying the stuff next week, going over to Mother's place on Thursday, that sort of thing. Now it's looking to be a smaller than a usual affair, just because of lack of people. But Mother had to deal with some financial issues this year, let's just say, and doesn't have as much as she would want to have during the holidays. Outside of that, MSP is actually supposed to return today, or I guess possibly the Portside Crucible. It's like not exactly sure. Like, I know just last week we announced that Max said that if there was no guest, there would be no show. But we're currently on week 4 of that.
Not for lack of trying, but yes.
Not listing reasons. I'm just saying, it's been about a month since we had an MSP episode. So, yeah, he's thinking that having an MSP episode, even sans guests, is a good idea at this point. This may change. He may change his mind, but that's kind of the plan going forward at this moment in time. Let's see. Yeah, I think that's about it for news this week. So merrily we shall roll along to the interview portion of the broadcast, and this week we have Benoit Archer of Bishop Games.
Hello.
Well, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing fine, and you?
I'm doing well. I think everyone here is doing fine. Right. So we'd like to start things by getting to know how people got invested into this whole video game thing, both as a hobby and as a business.
Right. Well, for me, I've always been a huge video game fan, as I guess like you. But I didn't study in this field. I was working in marketing and communication actually before we started out this whole studio project with Bishop Games. So I was approached by my childhood friend, who is the artist for Lightfall, basically, and he asked me if I wanted to join him and make a studio with a guy he met, which is the third founder of Bishop Games, David, and he is the programmer of Lightfall. So this is how we started out. I guess just as three friends, having some vision to make a platformer where you control your own platform, because that's the main thing behind Lightfall.
Like, that's certainly a specific vision. Like, I suppose the question that beckons is, what was the seed of inspiration for this Lightfall, where you have a platform available at all times?
Yeah, the main thing was that at first it didn't came the idea didn't came initially for the mobile platform. The first thing was the artist wanted to play in black and white. That's why the game is called Lightfall. The game takes place in a world with no sunlight, so as such, there's a lot of dark shapes, and there's a lot of potential to play with light effects throughout the game. So that was the main inspiration for the artist itself. But as we progressed, we realized that the game itself was pretty, not very original. It was just like another platformer, basically, where you had a character that could sprint and jump around. So we just went back to the drawing board and said, hey, why not, make something cool? Let's make a platformer where you control your own platform, so you can, in some way, make your own level design. So that was the main idea.
Yeah, I can see that. I suppose before we should continue, we should play the trailer for this. Like,
sure.
Which trailer do you want? The first one?
Probably the Nintendo Switch trailer. It's the newest.
All right. Give me one moment.
Real-time programming.
Yep. All right. It's ready.
All right. Right then. So as you can see, you can get pretty creative with the Shadow Core, I believe it's called.
Yep, that's right.
Like, now, is there a particular reason why this box is named the Shadow Core?
Well, there's a big story in the game, so I won't reveal too much, but obviously there's a reason behind the name itself, and there's a reason why the box works for the player. So there's a link between the player and the strange box. So, but I can't reveal too much, because that's revealed later in the story.
Right. So there is a big reason, but it's something that has to be discovered along the way.
Yep.
Not too surprised at that. Now, Pettyfan, do you have the other development footage?
I have the gameplay footage.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's a bit on the older side, but I think it'll get everything across.
Yep.
Anyway, but yeah, looking at this game, and reading up on it, I've seen a lot of comparisons to both like Limbo and Trine. Like,
yep.
Have you taken any influence from those games, or is that just like a happy accident?
Well, obviously, I would be lying if I said that we didn't know those games before we started Lightfall. Oh my! I'm just looking at the video right now. It's a pretty whole video, but anyway. Yeah, so yeah, obviously we knew of Limbo, we knew of Trine. We were a big fan of those games. So, but it wasn't a reason why. We went for the silhouette style. Like I said, our artists had a vision to make a game in a world without sunlight. So obviously, when you play with black and white like that and play with the light effects with the silhouette style, you're gonna have a similar look than Limbo. So it's something we just learned to live with, and obviously for us it's just a big honor to be compared with Limbo. And as for Trine, we didn't really know the game itself, so but I understand. I know why some people can find the resemblance between the Magician box and the one in Lightfall. So definitely there's inspiration there, but it wasn't like the main reason why we went with this type of game.
Gotcha. It's just comparisons have come up, but influence will crop up where it will. I'm like, I suppose a bigger concern is, are you worried about the game kind of, how do I put this, getting sunk beneath the waters of the endless tide that is like the Steam store or whatever? Like, there are a lot of games coming out these days.
Yep.
And, your game isn't Limbo or anything, but there are a lot more games that use this silhouette style than there were a few years ago.
Yep.
And it's getting ever tougher for an indie game to make its claim on the market. Do you think the Shadow Core will make it stand out well enough?
I think so, honestly, because this is when you put the controller in the people's hands, this is where the comparisons with Limbo or try and stop. Because once you get the experience of Lightfall with the fast-paced gameplay and just the freedom with the Shadow Core, this is where you realize, man, this is amazing. I just want to keep going fast. I want to do whatever I want with the cube. So I think that we truly have something unique in hand. And we've been to several PAX, like PAX East in Boston. We went twice. We went to PAX South in San Antonio 3 times, and the reaction was always pretty well received by the fans and by the press alike. So this definitely gives us confidence as we get closer to a launch. But you can't tell. You can never tell if your launch is going to be successful or not. So at this point, we're just crossing our fingers, I guess.
Fair point. Yeah. Because that is something I personally grow ever more concerned about, because, well, like, we've had people on the show who who work hard on their projects, who put everything in it, and they just don't make it. It's like, so, but yeah, I think this game will stand out well enough. It's not just the box, but like the overall art style. It's not a stark black and white game.
Yeah.
It's got this eternal twilight look to it, which is, if it reminds me of another game, it's Night Sky, or I don't remember.
Yeah, it's Night Sky.
Yeah, good. Yeah, it's a game where you play a marble and it's against twilight silhouettes. It was a puzzle platformer.
Okay, yeah, I don't know the game, but I'll look it up for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, so aside from the obvious, what can you do with the Shadow Core?
You can do many things. Obviously, the first one is you can spawn it underneath your feet as you jump through the air and stuff like that. You can spawn it 4 times in a row before you're gonna touch the ground to recharge it. You can use it to roam around. So basically, you can use it in a way where the Shadow Core becomes the character itself. So it's the one moving around, and you can scout ahead of time with it. You can block lasers, block many projectiles coming your way. You can shield yourself. There's a lot of ways to use it. It's just up to the player to decide. We don't want to force one single way to use the shadow core, like in a puzzle, for example. We want the player to beat the level the way he wants to. So that's the main thing we do with the shadow core, is just the ultimate freedom.
Right. Now, how do you work that from a design perspective?
Well, it was a pretty big nightmare at first. Uh, the shadow core didn't start out really well. At first, it was just the cube will appear around the player and rotate around the player in on some sort of rail where you had to stop it to and then jump on it. So it took many iterations to get it right and just to have this natural feeling. And then we just had to. It gets complicated because in regular platformers you just have to level design on the horizontal axis. But now with the shadow core, you can go so high into the air and stuff like that that you have to design a level also on the vertical axis. So it gets pretty messy but with time we got used to it.
That's good to hear. And are there any like weapons or other items, or is it just the shadow core here?
The shadow core can be used as a weapon later on. You can do an attack which is called the shadow strike. So basically, you're just sending your shadow core spinning in front of you, and so you can break some part of the levels. You can attack some enemies with it. So yeah, the shadow core is the weapon in the game.
But like the player can't do anything themselves.
No, like the main artifact is the shadow core. So that's your all-in-one tool in the game to beat the game. The player itself, as you've seen in the video, is a small teenage boy. So obviously, he's not some sort of superhuman or superhero. So he has to rely on his shadow core to beat the mini challenge that are ahead of him.
And let me see. Do you have the shadow core at all times, or will there be points where that ability might be removed?
Good question. You have the shadow core for, I'd say, the most part of the game, but indeed there are some places later on that are how we call it is the no shadow core zone, basically, which is some sort of power that removes the ability to spawn the shadow core.
I figured something like that would be in the game because, well, not for nothing. Yeah, it's a common tactic if you have a central mechanic that sometimes that central mechanic will not be operational for some reason.
Yep.
Let's see. So how long has Lightfall been in development for?
It's been too long, man. Honestly, we started this whole thing in March 2014, so it's been almost 4 years now. For the first 2 years, it was mostly part-time because we had to have a second job on the side to survive, obviously. And then in summer 2016, we won some local contests, which basically gave us 50K and 1 year of office space in a tech lab, basically, which is a place that start for startups. And then we have something in Canada, which is that is called the CMF, which is the Canadian Media Fund. So it's basically a program that can fund up to 75% of a project, and then you repay them with your sales. So we got accepted with that. So that allowed us to have salaries. So in summer 2016, this is when we really started to get full time on this and just leave our jobs and solely focus on Lightfall.
Neat. Yeah, we've had other Canadian developers on the program who've mentioned the CMF.
Yeah, it's a pretty well-known thing in Canada.
Mm-hmm. It's good that such a program exists. Every little bit helps on the indie scene.
Yep.
But Yeah. So, how far along is the game at this point?
Right now at the studio, we have a pretty complete beta. The PC version is almost done, to be honest with you. We're just in the phase of just the last polishing phase, so adding more background depths and adding some shaders, effects, and stuff like that. Um, and what will be left with after that will be the console ports, because we're planning to launch across all platforms at the same time. So PC, PS4, X1, and Switch. So we'll be starting up the console certification pretty soon.
Um, that's good. That's good because I believe this game has a general release of March 2018.
Yep.
Like, and well, before getting more on that, shifting back to the game itself, uh, I believe this game, for all its gameplay around the Shadow Core, is actually a very narratively focused platformer. Correct?
Yeah, we have two game mode. In fact, what you see in most trailers is obviously the story mode. So you have in-game narration, you have cutscenes between the levels, and all that stuff. But we also have a speedrun mode, which is basically for the hardcore gamers. It's like a Super Meat Boy, but the same type of gameplay. Really fast paced, so the levels are much harder this time around, and we'll have online leaderboards where you can compete for the best times, and you can also download the ghosts of other players and race against their ghosts.
Always nice when a game does that. Adds to the replayability to the to the game.
Yep, because we felt that the story itself, I'd say like the average player will probably beat the game in 4 hours basically. So obviously, having the speedrun mode allows a couple more hours of fun.
Indeed, and I also saw that this game is set to be like a fairly short experience, about 3 hours.
Yep, 3 to 4 hours would be the average time for the story mode. I think it's pretty hard to guess, but I think from what we've seen in packs and stuff like that, it's going to be around 3 to 4 hours.
Um, and are you like? Is that just completing the main story, or is that like including exploration or collecting? Well, do you have collectibles in this game?
Yeah, we have many secret passages and two types of collectibles. So obviously, if you want to complete, all the achievements and all the hidden objects, I think you can add like 1 to 2 hours with that. But still, that's still pretty like a relatively short experience, around 6 hours.
And was there any particular drive behind making, a short experience, as it were?
I guess it was mainly just the size of the team. We started out for the first 3 years. We were only three guys, and since last year we're now a team of 5. But with this size of a team, it gets pretty. It's already took us 4 years to get to this point, so I don't think we'll have the manpower to add much more, levels and stuff like that.
Indeed. Well, that's good to hear. It's like, honestly, not every game needs to be a 40-hour epic or whatever.
Yeah, and also the price itself will reflect that, gameplay time. We'll be selling the game for $15, so obviously we wouldn't feel really comfortable selling much higher than that.
Mm-hmm. Like, it sounds about right. Like, because I suppose another thing is, are you like concerned about refunds? Because it's kind of like on the indie scene, it's kind of a concern about having short experiences. People will buy the game, blow through it, and then refund it.
Yeah. I can speak for the other guys, but I'm not really, afraid or worried about that. I mean, I think most of the refounds usually are when a game doesn't deliver on something it promised, and when the game itself is like a letdown from what was shown in a trailer or stuff. Like I don't want to name any game, but we all know of that game in space that was so kind of a letdown for the majority of the players. So that I think that's when a game like that, just lies to its player that will get refounded a lot. I think that the players itself now they are aware of the indie scene and indie devs, and I don't think they will just play the game and as you said, blast through it and then refound it. I don't think so.
Okay. Granted, it's one of those things that's impossible to tell, but it's good that you have confidence in your perceived audience. Like, and I'm assuming that's based off of all the conventions you've done over the years.
Yeah, we have a pretty big, well, not big, but we have a pretty solid following. Be it on our social media, we have a lot of followers on Instagram. We have a lot, of people subscribe to our newsletter. A lot of people following our Kickstarter updates. So I think we have a solid base, and we've also, tried to go to the Asian market. So we went to the Bit Summit in Japan last May, and the reaction was pretty good. I mean, we even got like the two front page of the Famitsu magazine. We were called the title of the week there, and we also got like 5 nominations in a Korean festival. So I think that will help us with our sales quite a bit, because we'll have a partner for China as well to distribute the game in China. So with those 3 countries, on top of like North America and Europe, I think we'll be fine.
Like, well, it's good that your game got such a reception in the Far East.
Yep.
Like, to be honest, I wasn't expecting that. Mainly because I hear so rarely about indie games going to Japan and vice versa. Like, I'm not saying that there's not a scene and all that there is. It's just it's not talked about often.
It was a pretty big gamble, to be honest, because obviously going to Boston, we can drive down there. So the cost of attending taxis versus going to Japan is obviously higher, but for going to Japan. But it was a good gamble for us because the reception was nice from the press over there, but it could have turned out quite differently.
And do you have to? Did you have to do any like artistic tweaking for those markets?
Not really. I think that oddly enough, the silhouette style is pretty popular in Asia. So that was the most common thing that the players over there said, that they really like the art style of the game. So I don't know why, but it was the most common point. So we were kind of lucky with that.
Indeed. You okay over there, Galix?
Oh yeah, sorry.
Okay,
I'll mute my mic. I'm just having a little bit of nose congestion.
Gotcha. Anyway, right. So shifting gears a bit. Is this game made in any specific middleware tool set like Unity or Unreal?
Yeah, the game is made in Unity.
Not too surprising. If like we know a lot of people who work in Unity.
Yeah, I'd say like the majority of indie devs use Unity.
Yeah, I'm like, if we had a nickel for every time a developer on this show mentioned Unity, we'd be quite wealthy.
I mean, it's a really great engine. As I said, when I first started out in Bishop Games, I came from a marketing background, so I had no clue how to do all that stuff. It's such a great engine that it's such easy to learn that right now I'm the one who does the level design in Lightfall. I just learn from scratch because it's such a powerful engine.
True enough, like it's an accessible one as well.
Yep.
Like, it's got its issues. Like we've had a lot of people grumble about Unity in one fashion or another, usually about optimization, but it's it's probably the most accessible engine out there, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, but there's also the fact that when you want to do like a 2D game, it's the perfect engine. I mean, why would you go in with Unreal if you want to do 2D? Unreal is for like the hardcore, like the really big and really well detailed games, 3D games. So when you do like more common games like 2D games, you just go with Unity. That's the engine that makes sense.
Indeed. And well, how many people are working on this game?
We started out with the 3 guys and the 3 founders, and right now we're a team of 5. And this is what will remain for the whole project. We'd like to upgrade the team to 8 people for the second project that we're starting out pretty soon, but we'll see how the sales of Lightfall go before that.
And let's see, have there been any issues getting the game onto the consoles?
We're in the process of starting up the console certification, so we'll see how the TRC go. But for getting accepted on the consoles itself, it was a pretty easy process, to be honest with you. It was hard to have the first point of contact with like Sony or Microsoft, but once you get the point of entrance to get into the system, the people over there, they're really helpful and stuff like that. So it's pretty easy. It's just to get their attention that is hard.
I've heard that. Nintendo as well. Speaking of which, is there anything being done special for the Switch version, like maybe touchscreen controls for the box, or did you have to make any sacrifices to get it on the system? I'm not expecting any, but I also know that the Switch is a less powerful system than either console or PC.
I can't really talk about it, to be honest with you. So what I can say is keep an eye out for the Switch version. Maybe. This is all I can say.
Like, eyebrow raising, but NDAs are a thing, so we can't press further. So, let's see. The music. What kind of music are you going for here, if there is going to be music at all?
Yeah, there's going to be music in every levels, obviously, but also what we're doing is called leitmotifs music. So basically, it's what Star Wars do. It's like a soundtrack for like each emotion, or like for some emotions. Like there's a soundtrack for sad moments, a song for fast-paced gameplay and stuff like that. So this is what we're trying to push forward, this leitmotif approach, and we're working with a sound agency in Quebec, which is called Peak Media, and they're the one doing the soundtrack for the game.
Like, and are they doing the sound, like the sound effects as well?
Yeah, they're doing the SFX as well. I'm just I can, if you guys want, I have a soundtrack. If you guys want to listen to, I can send it over Skype, and I don't know if you guys can play it on the Twitch thing, but
I suppose we could, but
it's really up to you.
It's like we usually don't play music because of YouTube.
Yeah.
All right, well, I can send it after the interview if you guys just want to share it with the people in chat or whatever.
All right.
We can do that. After the, I guess after the other show. But anyway, let's see. As far as the PC version goes, is it going to be Windows only, or are you making Linux and Mac versions as well?
We're making a Mac version because, well, first of all, our artists are working on a Mac, so we have no choice. We might make a Linux one, but like it's not really a high priority. Like we'll make it if we have time for the release. But if not, it's gonna come later.
Hmm. A fairly common sentiment due to various factors. It's like Linux has a lot of combinations that make it tricky to program for, and low sales usually result in a lot of developers not wanting to do the version at launch or never.
Yeah.
Now, it is unfortunate, but that's kind of the breaks when it comes to Linux. Let's see. I'll see if my crew here have any more questions for you.
I was actually wondering if there are going to be any like challenge maps where like you can get a better score if you use like a limited number of the shadow core thing.
There's gonna be some sort of achievements, like Steam achievements, if you do some gameplay achievements with the Shadow Core, of course. And for the levels themselves, I think we'll have some exclusive levels for the speedrun, but I don't think we'll have like challenge levels itself.
Fair enough. I think that's all I got.
Yeah. Alex?
Yeah, I don't have any particular questions. Looks pretty interesting though.
Right then. I think that'll do it for me as well. Bishop. Sorry, Benoit.
Yeah.
Wrong names mixed. Anyway, I want to thank you for joining us this evening. The game looks very promising. Hopefully, we can get review copies in March.
Sure.
Right, and also, hopefully, we'll have you on the show whenever your next project is ready to be talked about.
Yep, that will be my pleasure.
All right. Game is Lightfall. It's coming in March 2018 to all major platforms for $15. Be sure to look for it early next year. So, Betty Van, play us to the next segment. So welcome to this week's topic of discussion. This time around, we're talking about the Heretic and Hexing series. Reason being, well, honestly, these series don't get as much discussion time as they really should. I mean, I suppose I get it. They weren't the big projects from id Software. They weren't Wolfenstein, they weren't Doom, they weren't Quake, but they were still actual id Software projects. And I suppose Hexen in particular was fairly popular. Indeed, that's the one that actually got ported to consoles of the day. The rest of the series, PC only, which is kind of an indicator of how popular they were. Yeah. Anyway, so things start with Heretic, and also, actually, I suppose things start a bit earlier. I'm trying to remember the name of the thing. I believe it's called Shadowbane. This game is important because it's the first collaboration between Raven Software and id Software. Heretic and the Hexen games were the projects that put Raven Software on the map, so to speak. But it was Shadowcaster. Here we go. That's the one. I bring up Shadowcaster because this was actually the first collaboration between id Software and Raven. And this is actually kind of an important step in the evolution of id Software games, because this is actually the first appearance of the Doom engine. The more, or I guess id Tech 2, or whatever you would want to call it. It's the more advanced form of what id was working on. It actually debuted here as a dry run for Doom. I haven't actually played, or I haven't actually played this game, but it does have that footnote in it. Like, and I suppose that the question beckons: am I the only one here who has played these games?
I believe so.
I haven't because I was not much of a computer gamer. Also, I think I'm feeding back through Twilight.
Not me. It's already there before.
Oh, maybe it was Adam. I just saw your thing lighting up, so.
Well, anyway, I didn't play a lot of computer games back in the 90s, so I couldn't play it either.
I think I played. Well, I played Hexen first because, as I said, that's the one that appeared on consoles. I played the Nintendo 64 version. That was an interesting experience because, honestly, the Nintendo 64 version of Hexen had some problems, some big fucking problems, but we'll get to that when we get to that.
I was about to ask that was a good experience or a bad experience, and I guess you just answered that.
Right. I've also played the PC version of Hexen. Never beat it. Once again, there are reasons for that. I first played Heretic, I think in '97. It was in the. It was like in the high school computer labs computers, like, and they didn't.
Because who knows what ends up on those things.
Yeah, it's like. Well, here's the thing, like. They were still using DOS computers, and I knew how to type in DOS, at least well enough to play games. So, they had the first episode of Heretic there, and I played that.
Yeah, because especially in DOS, teachers didn't have enough time to care about, what all was on those. Back in the day. Now we have, nowadays we have programs that'll just wipe the computer back to factory every day, so you can't really do that anymore.
Yeah, there was actually a lot of games on these computers. I'm like, I don't think. I'm trying to think if Doom was. I think Doom was on the computer as well. I think fucking Quake was there. Terminal Velocity was there, which was a favorite of mine.
Wow, if they had Quake, those must have been pretty decent computers for their day.
Well, it wasn't particularly playable, but it was a popular game.
Fair enough.
There was a Wolfenstein 3D total conversion called Barney Stein 3D. I think you can, and the goal of that was to kill Barney, the dinosaur, and
because of course.
Well, it's like all the Nazi characters were replaced by Beavis and Butthead for some reason. Okay.
I'm more concerned about why Barney was in charge of an army of Beavis and Butthead.
Don't ask me.
It was the 90s. It was a different time back then, friend.
Yeah, it's
It
like.
was.
Yeah, I mean, just all sorts of games. Like, really random ones, like Front Page Football '95. It's amazing how much of this I remember. But yeah, the ultimate point was, I played Heretic here, and not surprisingly, I thought it played a lot like Doom, because honestly, Heretic is basically medieval Doom. Right down.
Well, and that's the major thing with these is that they play pretty similarly to some of the other first-person shooter games, but the theming is very different because they are, not sci-fi military based.
Right, and it's important to note though that this one was also produced by id Software. Their names are in the credits. and it it goes beyond just using the Doom engine. Admittedly, I don't know how much coordination was done between id Software and Raven. Like, it's like who approved what. We'd have to talk to somebody who worked on the game to know all this. Like, um, I hate it when he does that. 10 minutes. Like,
Who?
Mac, he wants to know if MSP is on in 10 minutes or an hour. An hour. Anyway, sorry about that. Sometimes he live messages us, and it breaks the flow.
He's. I blame Arizona.
Yeah, I do too. I blame daylight savings time as well. Anyway. Oh, good. He probably stayed up all night again. Like,
We may or may not be having MSP.
yeah, it's like, yeah, it's like, sure. Suddenly he'll wake up at 1 o'clock and go, why? Where did everybody go? Well, they went to bed. Because you went to bed. Anyway, getting back to Heretic. Like, Heretic tells the story of the first of 3 Serpent Riders. I believe this one was Disparo. And, typical, corruption, conquered the world. You are the hero that must free the world from evil. And, that's about it. It's about as light on the actual story as...
Yeah, if Doom's story could be as simple as, hey, demons are coming to Mars, go kill them.
Yeah.
You didn't need that much more than that.
Yeah. It's like, and going back to the Doom similarities, the weapons are pretty close to Doom. Obviously, because there's a lot of overlap between this and Doom. Like, it hurts me to say this because I really, really love Heretic, but it's a pretty derivative game. It didn't have a lot of distinctiveness outside of its setting. Mind you, it did have things to separate itself from the pack. One of which is, well before Duke Nukem did it, it had interactive environments. Like, but that might not have been enough to separate itself from the pack. Like, and you could use different. It had a bit of RPG flair to it. You had inventory items and such. Like, also worth noting, if you use Doom codes in this, beware. I've gotten this one out the hard way.
They didn't put all the memory stuff in all the same places.
No, they fuck with you. Because if you put in the all weapons and keys cheat, it takes away all your weapons.
Yeah.
If you put God mode, it'll kill you.
Yeah, some games did this, like even built on the Doom engine, they would do this to screw with you.
Right. And, they expect you to do this too. Like, it's like, oh, hey, this is like Doom. I wonder if the codes from Doom will work here. Well, they do. They're gonna hurt. And Heretic, much like other FPSs at the time, was released shareware style. The thing I played back in the 90s was the first episode, and just the first episode. It wouldn't be until much, much later when I purchased the entire set off of Steam that I actually played through the entire Heretic game.
Mhm.
Anyway, and that's all I really got on Heretic. Uh, it's basically medieval Doom. Now, Hexen is the much more interesting game, um, in a lot of ways, because Hexen actually changed up the design formula a fair bit. Uh, Instead of having normal Doom levels, you had hubs. It's not a persistent world. You still go through loading spaces and all that stuff, but um, everything is now interconnected, and you can uh, go places back and forth, which was
Instead of just start of level to end of level. I mean, there's exploration within the levels, but between the
Right.
levels, Doom and stuff were all pretty much linear.
right. And like I said, that was a pretty big revelation for um, the time, especially like Doom Engine games, because you just didn't see that in a lot of Doom Engine games. There are other ones, like I'd say the most advanced Doom Engine game I can think of is Strife,
Mhm.
which also did this. Question.
Yeah, Strife was one of those. If you told me it wasn't made in Doom Engine, I might actually believe you.
Hmm. And another innovation of Hexen is you had multiple characters, or actually multiple character classes, as you could play as a fighter, a cleric, or a mage. And the choice here mattered. You know, you weren't just generic elf guy anymore. You were, if you're a fighter, guess what? You're going to be stronger, but you're going to be slower, and you're going to be very melee focused. As opposed to the mage who weaker.
Pretty much the opposite of that.
Yeah, he's the glass cannon. He's got the long range stuff, but you know he's fragile and he's apparently pretty slow. Like, which is usually how that.
Actually, out of those three characters, which one would be fast?
Probably the cleric.
Yeah.
Like, just
A lot of times in stuff like this, it's the cleric who's kind of like the quick one, the fighter's the slow but beefy one, and then what was the third option?
Mage.
Yeah, mage hits hard but doesn't move
Yeah.
as fast and is kind of made of paper.
Yeah, cleric is kind of your in between. It has the melee and the ranged. Also worth noting that different items work differently for different characters. The flechette comes to mind. So there's a lot more going on here in terms of design and I guess even story. That's just more down to the second Serpent Rider, Korax. You actually interact with him quite a bit throughout the game. Like, he shows up at various intervals to taunt you, which was another first for Doom games, because you usually didn't see the boss until it was time to fight the boss.
Right. Because you're not usually seeing anything unless it's there for you to shoot at.
Right. So, with all that set in mind, Hexen just never clicked with me. I don't think I ever really liked the hub design personally, even though from a design perspective, it's much more interesting. Like, and also, this game was released wholesale, instead of episodically. Not only because of, even though this game came out 1995, shareware was still a thing. It's just, this design really didn't lend itself to the episodic structure. uh, uh, and getting to the Nintendo 64 version. So the reason why this one was so problematic, other than it's an FPS with a it's a PC FPS with a control stick, um, is well, there was an issue with the save feature. Other than it was a huge save file. Like it was one of those. You're gonna need an entire memory card to save this kind of
Oh,
game.
this one couldn't save the cartridge itself. It had to have one of those N64 memory cards.
Well,
Yeah.
a lot of N64 games were like that.
Like in case they wanted to. That was the big problem. So this was actually a save anywhere. You'd think that would be good because usually that is, but picky about where you saved. Or you'd save falling down a pit.
Oh,
Yep.
that's a bad time to save.
You could save as you nearly died.
This happened to me. I was in an endless loop of fall death.
Ouch.
My favorite is to troll somebody in games like that, and basically as I'm taking fatal damage, hit the save button and have them try and get out of it.
After that, I think I think I rented the game, or if not, I probably sold it off. Either way, I didn't play it again because seriously, fuck that.
Oh, you mean you didn't want to play, what is it, a 15-hour game over again?
Nope. It's like I did not. I mean, that is an issue with save anywhere in general. It's kind of the down it's the downside to save scumming. This is why you make multiple save.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. This is why PC let you usually do at least 2 or 3 save slots.
But you see how the one problem flows into the other problem. You can only have the one save because it's so big. And if you fuck that save up, there's no getting around it. Like, so.
Because this was before the days of, oh, you died, just go back to a checkpoint. You died, you were screwed.
Well, I mean, usually the FPSs on console work that way. Like, I played quite a few of them back, like Turok Dinosaur Hunter and Doom 64 and GoldenEye. None of those worked like this. Hexen did. It's just I don't know if the Saturn and PlayStation versions work like this. I never played those particular versions. Aside from that, Hexen was all right on the platform. It wasn't really impressing anyone because it, even unlike say Doom 64, which was dated, but at least it was its own original game. Hexen was just a 2-year-old PC port, and 2-year-old PC ports were not impressing people. When games like Turok Dinosaur Hunter and GoldenEye were coming out. Now, really the only thing going for the Nintendo 64 version was the multiplayer mode. It had the typical multiplayer mode, up to 4 players deathmatch. I'm trying to think. I want to say that, yeah, the biggest selling point for the N64 version of Hexen was the 4-player split screen cooperative play.
Oh.
Yeah. That was shit. That's just a rarity in general. Getting 4 players to have a co-op. Never mind, a 1997 N64 game. I mean, it looked like utter shit because, um, the game has to go into low detail mode. This game was already not looking good. I mean, uh, that's another thing about Hexen. Maybe it's just my memory, but I remember that game being a lot more brown than Heretic.
Yeah.
But it's been a long time since I played them, so it could be off. It's like memories fade and all that. But yeah. Oh, to cap off the trilogy, we had Hexen 2, which I never played when it was new. Like, that one just escaped me, and I'm not sure how many. Like, once again, it's hard to get a gauge on how well the series did. Like, I guess this did well enough, a bit more on that bit, but Hexen 2. So this one was clearly more modeled after Quake. Like, right down to, at this point, it's using the Quake engine.
Which had some improvements.
Right. And the warning if you get this game off of Steam. So back in the day, a lot of what a lot of games would do would play its soundtrack right off the CD. So what that means is the Steam version is literally missing the music.
Oh, that's no fun.
Yeah, like it makes for a very quiet experience. Like, and yeah, and as far as the game itself, well, it plays a lot like Quake, but
Only
enhanced.
with swords and magic.
Yeah, it's like, it had things like the destructible environments, and it refined the level up system and so on and so forth. Admittedly, I never finished this particular game. And honestly, it's been a very long time since I played Hexen 2. And since I don't have like the added background, it's like the least one in my memory. So apologies on that. Now, there was a fourth game in this. And this one's a real curio here. Because Heretic 2, I'm not exactly sure how to quantify this, or rather classify this. Because this is kind of an unofficial sequel. That is to say, id Software is missing from the package, literally. Like, the game is mostly credited to Activision and Raven Software. Like, id Software is only listed as the licensor of the engine and presumably the name.
Yeah, because they still made the originals.
Right. So, whatever role the id Raven collaboration produced isn't here. It's just I couldn't tell you what that is, other than this turned into a third-person game. I'm like, it was probably not all that good because early third-person games, like around this time, weren't too good. But that's just speculation.
They hadn't really developed great independent camera control yet.
Right. God. So here's the thing. The reason I can't speak on this is this game is just flat out unavailable. Like, it's, once again, I didn't play this back in the day. And it's not on GOG, it's not on Steam, it's not on anything.
And I imagine it's so old now you can't even run it on modern hardware.
I presume this is because of the fact that Activision and Raven did this on their own, and whatever rights disputes between that is preventing this game from seeing re-release. Like I said, this is just my personal speculation. I don't know the reason. All I know is Heretic 2 is unavailable. The other games you can get on Steam right now. You can honestly, you can get them for a pretty good price, $10 if I'm remembering correctly. Even less when a Steam sale happens. About $5. And I do recommend checking them out because, I really do wish these games would get more love because, they're not, okay, they weren't the mega superstars of the 90s, but they weren't exactly, to go back to Strife, a really obscure relative failure either.
Mm-hmm.
Or should I say, or System Shock, or another, or like any of the Capstone games. There were a lot of FPSs in the 90s that didn't make any sort of impact for one reason or another. But this one did. Not a huge impact, but huge enough to be remembered.
Yeah, and again, these were kind of important for
Yeah, and they were also in advancements in the genre that not a lot of people talk about.
right.
Like like hopefully one day LGR makes a video on this franchise.
Mm-hmm.
Or Ahoy, or any one of the
Retro tubers.
Yeah, whatever word we're using for that now. Like, so I think that'll about do it for this installment of Fragments of Silicon. Let's see. So we are having MSP.
Allegedly, unless Max passed out for the next 4 hours.
Yeah, I'm like, knock on wood. Not sure if, or it could veer into the Portside Crucible.
Mm-hmm.
Still something.
Yeah, exactly.
There should be some kind of organized show after this.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Mainly because, as I just said, he's going to lie down for a cat nap. I'm like, I don't think anyone here is expecting him to be awake in an hour.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if we poke him.
Yeah, we'll try. Jeez. But before we go into the Fragment stuff, Petty Fan, you might want to give an update on guests, because we actually do have a bit of an update there.
Currently, we have 3 guests have shown interest. One is a YouTuber who does a lot of chemistry stuff called Nile Red, where he goes into different, does demonstrates various chemical reactions and whatnot. There is there is Andrew Borman, who he's basically a video game prototype archivist who also works at the Museum of Play in Rochester, New York. And there is also Phantom Strider, who I believe he's someone Adam follows.
Yeah, he's a cartoon reviewer.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, basically I'm just waiting for these guys to get back to me and see about slotting them in as guests.
Yeah, so next week we could actually have a guest there.
Hopefully, all things go according to plan.
Yeah. Or not next week. Actually, next week we don't have anything slated, because next week is Thanksgiving.
Fair enough.
Right. So keep that in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
because I'm pretty sure everyone here is going to be engaged in Thanksgiving plans. So,
Yeah, my uncle's supposed to be coming up.
I don't
Yeah.
think I have anything, but I don't mind having a night off.
Your mom might make you cook turkey.
like, anyway, yeah. So really, the only thing on the Fragments docket, upcoming is Sunday. We have a review on Lost Dimension coming, because I have to. It's been a few weeks, and I have to get this back to Ghostlight.
Mm-hmm. And then over the break, we probably should start working on, for those of us who haven't, mostly me, on the other RPG that we're reviewing later.
Right, and then we'll be back with a review of .hack GU Last Recode.
Yep.
And
Good luck, gentlemen.
Yeah. Well, like I said, Petty Fan and Twilight are taking the lead here because they know this thing, and what I know comes from Naka's Let's Play of the game.
Oh,
Yeah.
do I have an axe to grind with this story?
Yeah, .hack mostly missed me, and I didn't even get to see Naka's Let's Plays because I didn't have time.
Right.
I started following him mostly after that.
Yeah, and I think for anyone looking for them now, they are mostly incomplete now because of the people who own the soundtrack.
Yeah, Victor Entertainment.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Naka's had some issues with that, and he's to the point where he doesn't really care to fight back.
Yeah, I think he's also mentioned that that might be one of the things that might make Volume 4 Let's Play not happen, because you'd have to deal with Victor again.
Right.
So, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah. Anyway, on that note, from everyone here at Fragments of Silicon, we wish you a happy Thanksgiving.